I've been waiting for you for over 20 minutes. If we eventually get to school late today, you'll be the one to take all the strokes of cane from Mr. Cunnell, Deji said as he waits for Kola to get out of the house so that they could get to school before the morning assembly. Deji and Kola are best friends. Born just 2 months apart, they had practically grown as twins, with them being next-door neighbors. And attending the same school in the same class has been a big bonding factor as they spend every waking moment together. Their childhood was a blur of laughter, mischief, and dreams of a brighter future. As they grew older, they started becoming aware of their environment, and so while other children played away their time, Deji and Kola were different. They had big dreams and wanted to leave their boring town so bad to a city as big as Lagos. A place that seems to hold several opportunities. Their bond was even stronger because of their similar hardships, how they both came from very humble backgrounds, and their similar vision to break poverty bounds. Deji's father is a local tailor, and his mother sells akara in the local market. Kola's parents run a small provision store that barely sustains them. Life hasn't been easy, but their parents has instilled in them the value of hard work, integrity, and loyalty. After finishing secondary school, they already had a mindset that they remaining in their town would mean a life of mediocrity. With the little savings their parents had scraped together and the promise of some relatives in Lagos to help them get started, they set off on their journey. The trip to Lagos was filled with nervous excitement. All through the journey they talked about what they want to be in Lagos and how great their lives would change for it. Kola wanted to be a business magnate, and Deji dreamed of becoming a lawyer. The thought of the rumored happy city, with bright lights and endless opportunities, made their hearts race. On getting to Lagos, things didn't go exactly as they had imagined. When they arrived, reality hit them hard. The relatives who had promised to help suddenly became distant, leaving them to fend for themselves. They found themselves living in a cramped one-room apartment in a run-down part of the city. Jobs were scarce, and money was tight. Deji took up odd jobs, from washing cars to selling recharge cards on the streets. Kola, ever the hustler, worked as an apprentice at a small electronics shop. They pulled their little earnings together, surviving on bowls of gari and groundnuts most days. But despite the struggles, they never gave up on their dreams nor their friendship. When one fell sick, the other stayed up all night nursing him back to good health. When Kola's boss refused to pay him for months, Deji stepped in, sharing his earnings without a second thought. Their struggle continued, and slowly they climbed out of poverty. Deji got a job as a sales representative for a growing company, and Kola landed a managerial role at a logistics firm. Life began to improve, and they upgraded to a small but decent 2-bedroom apartment. It seemed like nothing could ever come between them. It's like Deji and Kola had been inseparable for as long as they could remember. Even when they had arguments that extended to their parents quarreling, they constantly found a way to reconcile, leaving their parents to settle their scores themselves. With time, their parents learned not to interfere in their quarrels. Despite their different jobs, they always found time for each other, whether it was watching football, sharing meals, or discussing life's challenges. But fate, as it often does, decided to test the bond they had spent years building. Deji and Kola, sitting on the balcony of their second-floor apartment, noticed a truck parked in the front of the compound. A petite young woman, dressed in a simple yet elegant Ankara dress, stood by the truck, directing the movers with a firm but polite tone. Her hair was tied up in a bun, and her smile carried an effortless charm that immediately captured the attention of everyone in sight. "She looks different," Deji muttered, leaning on the rail for a better view. "Different how?" Kola asked, following his gaze. "I don't know. She just has this presence," Deji replied, like he was searching for a right. Her Ankara dress swayed gently in the evening breeze, and even from a distance, her face radiated a warmth that seemed to make the Lagos heat more bearable. She was directing the guys who were carrying heavy loads. She was moving into an empty apartment in the compound. "I think she's struggling with that box," Kola said suddenly, already standing up. "Let's go help." Deji hesitated and said, "Maybe she doesn't need our help. She seems capable enough." "Capable? It's clearly too heavy for her to carry. Come on." Kola grinned and disappeared down the stairs while Deji sighed and followed reluctantly. When they reached her, she was attempting to balance a large box labeled fragile while opening the door to her new apartment. She was visibly frustrated but still managed to keep a calm composure. "Let me help with that," Kola said, stepping forward and gently taking the box from her hands. She turned, startled but heaved a sigh of relief. "Oh, thank you so much. I've been struggling with that one for the past 10 minutes, she said. "It's no problem," Kola replied, flashing his most charming smile. Deji, standing a step behind, offered a polite nod. "Welcome to the compound. I'm Deji, and this is Kola." Her face lit up and she said, "Thank you. I'm Zainab. It's nice to meet you both. And thank you again for helping with this box. These delivery guys were supposed to help move everything, but you know how it is." "Say no more," Kola said, already grabbing another box from the truck. "We've got this," he added. Deji joined in, and together they helped her carry the rest of her belongings into the apartment. As they placed the last box on the floor, Zainab offered them drinks. "It's the least I can do after all your help," she said, disappearing into the kitchen. The apartment was still bare, with only a few scattered pieces of furniture. Yet, there was a cozy quality to it, as though Zainab's personality alone could fill the space. "So, what has brought you here?" Deji asked as she returned with 3 bottles of malt drinks. "I just got transferred here for work," Zainab explained, sitting cross-legged on the floor. "I'm a pharmacist. The hospital where I am to resume working is not too far from here, so this place seems perfect." "That's great," Kola said, taking a sip. "You'll like it here. The neighbors are mostly nice." "Mostly," Zainab said amidst laughter. "Don't mind him," Deji interjected. "You'll be fine. And if you need anything, we live just right above you, upstairs," he added. "I'll hold you to that," Zainab said, smiling. When they finally returned to their apartment that evening, both men were unusually quiet. "She's something else," Kola said, breaking the silence as they sat on the balcony. Deji nodded slowly. "Yeah, she's different." For the first time in years, they found themselves at a loss for words. Zainab had left an impression on both of them, though neither was willing to admit just how deep it ran. As they sat there, each lost in his own thoughts, the sound of Zainab's laughter drifted up from her apartment below. It was light, genuine, and unguarded, a sound that made the world seem a little brighter. As time went on, the unspoken rivalry between Deji and Kola began to take root. Zainab, oblivious to the tension, continued treating both men with the same warmth and affection that had endeared her to them in the first place. But for Deji and Kola, every shared moment with her felt like a competition. It wasn't long before the weight of their feelings became too heavy to bear. Both knew that they couldn't keep pretending things were the same. One of them had to make a move. And soon. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Deji decided to act. He had spent the entire morning rehearsing what he would say to Zainab, pacing the small balcony he shared with Kola. "Are you going somewhere?" Kola asked casually, sipping his drink. "Just stepping out for a bit," Deji replied, avoiding eye contact. Kola raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Deji found Zainab in the courtyard, tending to the small flower pots she had placed outside her apartment. She looked up and smiled as he approached. "Hey, Deji. What's up?" She said. "Hey," Deji said, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. "Can we talk for a minute?" Zainab straightened, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Of course. Is everything okay?" she said. Deji took a deep breath. "Zainab, I've been wanting to say this for a while, but I didn't know how. I really like you. You're smart, kind, and honestly, you've been on my mind since the day you moved in." Zainab's eyes widened, and she looked away for a moment, clearly taken aback. "Wow, Deji. I don't know what to say," she said. "You don't have to say anything right now," Deji said quickly. I just needed to tell you how I feel. Zainab smiled softly. Thank you for being honest with me. I really appreciate it. Deji nodded, his heart pounding as he walked away. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of relief, though it was quickly tempered by uncertainty about her response. When Deji got back to the apartment, he looked very happy. Why are you this happy? Kola asked curiously, but Deji said nothing but smiled and went to the bedroom. The next day, Kola decided to meet Zainab to confess his feelings to her. He had noticed Deji's subtle avoidance and suspected that something had happened. Determined not to let Deji get ahead, Kola waited for an opportunity to speak to Zainab alone. He found her sitting on a bench in the compound, reading a book. Zainab, Kola said, approaching her with his usual confident stride. She looked up, smiling. Hey, Kola. What's going on? I need to talk to you about something important, he said, sitting beside her. Okay, Zainab said, closing her book. Kola hesitated, the words suddenly feeling heavier than he expected. Zainab, I care about you. A lot. You're the kind of person I've always hoped to meet. Someone genuine, thoughtful, and, honestly, incredible. Zainab's smile faltered slightly, and she bit her lip. Kola. This is a lot to process. I know, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know how I feel. I don't expect you to say anything now. I needed to be honest. Zainab nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. I really value our friendship, Kola. As Kola walked away, he felt a mix of hope and dread. Like Deji, he was now caught in the agonizing wait for Zainab's decision. Zainab was no stranger to attention, but this was different. Both Deji and Kola were genuinely good men, each with qualities she admired deeply. Deji had a quiet strength about him, a sincerity that made her feel safe. Kola, on the other hand, was charming and dependable, always knowing how to make her laugh. But the more she thought about it, the more conflicted she became. How could she choose between two people she cared about so much? Seeking clarity, Zainab turned to her closest confidant, her older sister, Amina. She picked up her phone to call her sister. Hello sister, Zainab said. How are you doing and how's your new job? Amina replied. Sister, work is fine. I really have something important to tell you and I need your advice, Zainab said nervously. What's that? Amina replied. I have these two guys who I think I love them equally, but I'm finding it difficult to pick among them. I don't know what to do, Zainab confessed as they spoke on the phone. They're both amazing in their own ways. Amina was silent for a moment before responding. Zainab, you can't avoid this decision forever. Listen to your heart. Who makes you feel truly happy, like you can be your complete self? Zainab sighed. That's the problem, Amina. They both do, in different ways. Then pray about it, Amina suggested. And remember, whoever you choose, the other will understand eventually. They're adults. Zainab wasn't so sure. As the week dragged on, the tension between Deji and Kola heightened. Though they tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, their interactions grew colder and more clipped. You've been spending a lot of time with Zainab lately, Kola said one evening, unable to hide the edge in his voice. So have you, Deji replied evenly. She can't pick both of us, Kola said bluntly. And you think she'll pick you? Deji shot back. The argument was brief but left a heavy silence in its wake. For the first time in years, their friendship felt fragile, as though it might shatter at any moment. Zainab left her apartment, her face calm but her eyes revealing the weight of the decision she was about to announce. She wore a simple white dress that caught the fading sunlight, making her look almost ethereal. Deji and Kola straightened in their seats as she approached, their hearts pounding. She stopped in the center of the courtyard, looking at both men. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of distant traffic and the chatter of children playing a few streets away. Thank you both for meeting me, Zainab began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. I know this hasn't been easy for any of us. You've both been so kind and supportive since I moved here, and I'm truly grateful for that. Deji and Kola remained silent, their gazes fixed on her. I've thought about this a lot, Zainab continued. I've prayed, I've sought advice, and I've looked into my heart. I want you to know that this decision doesn't come from a place of favoritism or comparison. It comes from how I feel, and I hope you can both respect that. She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Deji, you are one of the most honest, thoughtful, and dependable people I've ever met. Your quiet strength has been a source of comfort for me. And Kola, you have this incredible way of making people feel seen and valued. Your kindness and humor have brightened some of my darkest days. Both men's faces remained unreadable, though their eyes betrayed the storm of emotions raging within them. But, Zainab said, her voice faltering slightly as she continued, I can't be with both of you. That wouldn't be fair to anyone. She paused, meeting each of their gazes in turn. Finally, she turned to Deji. Deji, she said softly, my heart feels at peace when I'm with you. I choose you. For a moment, there was silence. Deji blinked, hardly believing what he had just heard. His heart, which had been racing moments before, seemed to skip a beat before pounding with a mixture of relief and disbelief. Me, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zainab nodded, a small, genuine smile breaking through the tension. Yes, you. Deji stood, his expression a mixture of joy and hesitation. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with emotion. I promise I won't let you down. Kola, still seated, felt the world spin. He had prepared himself for the possibility of rejection, but the reality hit harder than he expected. His jaw tightened, and he looked away, unable to meet either of their gazes. Kola, Zainab said gently, stepping closer to him. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, and I'm so sorry. You're an incredible person, and I hope you find someone who sees that and appreciates it fully. You deserve that. Kola stood abruptly, forcing a tight smile. It's fine, he said, though his voice betrayed the hurt he was trying to suppress. I get it. Congratulations to both of you. He turned and walked away, leaving Zainab and Deji standing in the courtyard, the weight of his absence hanging heavily in the air. The days that followed were awkward and strained. Deji tried to reach out to Kola, but his calls and messages went unanswered. In the apartment, the once lively conversations between the two friends ceased, leaving it in bare silence. Kola, Deji said one evening as they both sat in the living room, the TV playing a football match neither of them was watching. I didn't want things to end up like this. Kola didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the screen. I didn't plan for this to happen, Deji continued. But Zainab made her choice, and I. Kola cut him off. You don't need to explain. She chose you. End of story. It doesn't have to mean the end of our friendship, Deji said, his voice tinged with desperation. Kola turned to him, his expression unreadable. Sometimes, things change, Deji. You can't expect everything to stay the same. I no longer consider you a friend. Learn to deal with it.